My name is Ted Gottlieb. This is the first Senior Learning Institute event that we're doing in 2025, talking about the house and how we utilize the home to its fullest. Okay, so we're going to talk about that today. We've got a great panel that will shortly introduce themselves to you. If this is the first time you've been here, a couple housekeeping tips. If you have a phone that's going to ring, we would appreciate if you would put it on stun. That would be great. In front of you is some literature. First, the big packet is something for you to take home, excluding the last page. So there's some information and has a list of some resources and our educational partners. Those are companies that have been vetted over the years and also contribute to offset our cost of doing these events. We're in 5 different municipalities now, O'Fallon being one. We're also in City of Chesterfield, City of Sunset Hills, Maryland Heights, and Brentwood. So all of the topics that we're offering, and those topics are going to be in this smaller packet. There's a calendar for O'Fallon there, that all the events that we're doing in O'Fallon. If you find that you're not able to make one of the dates that's there and a particular topic interests you, then we'll be having that talk in one of the other municipalities throughout the year. So if you go to the Senior Learning Institute website, which is seniorlearninginstitute.com, you will be able to find the calendar for all of 2025. Okay? The last page of the attendee packet is a form that is optional for you to fill out. If you do fill it out, put your name, phone number, and you can put an email address there. We're not going to hound you, but at the bottom part of the evaluation form is a request list of sorts. If there is a topic that you want additional information on, that you would like for us to reach out to you and find out what your particular need is and give you a resource for that need, check a box or write it in what you're looking for, and I will call you, get a little bit more information in regard to what you're looking for, and then provide you that resource. It's a no cost, no obligation thing. If you don't want a phone call, don't put your phone number on there, okay? We do have reminder phone calls that can go out on a monthly basis. So if you give us your name and phone number, we'll send an automated phone call out to you a week before the event, reminding you of the upcoming event that's coming here in O'Fallon. If you don't want that phone call, just check the box that says, "Don't call me," and we won't call you, okay? When you hand in that evaluation form, we have what's known as a frequent learner card, and if you don't have one, we'll give you one after the seminar. What we do is we put a hole punch in it for every time that you come to the event. When you get 5 punches, you get a gift card to Panera, $10 gift card. So if you want to buy me coffee, that would be wonderful. Okay, so that's that. We have one other speaker. Dennis Cooper is going to be coming in a little bit late, but he will be coming in shortly, and that'll fill our panel. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves to you so that you know who they are, and then we have some questions in mind that I'm going to ask them, and then if at any time you have questions of the panelists, just raise your hand. We'll hand you the microphone so that everybody can hear what you're asking, and then we'll answer that question for you. Okay, so we're going to start with Billy. Billy, introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. My name is Billy Dawson. Everybody calls me Billy D. I have 2 companies. One is called Mr. Fix-It. It's the largest handyman service in the metro area. And then the other company we have is called Upkeep. Upkeep is a preventative maintenance program with a home warranty with it.
Good morning, I'm Brian Liberman, and my company is Next Day Access, and we provide accessibility solutions. So that's things like wheelchair ramps, grab bars, stair lifts. We cover the entire St. Louis metropolitan area, including Illinois, and we both sell our products and we rent them.
Good morning, my name is Matt Hall. My wife and I own an insurance agency in St. Charles, just up the road. The Hall Agency, we represent several different carriers, and if you have any questions at all, just feel free to ask. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Great, thank you. All right, so I was talking with somebody in the audience before we got started, and the comment went something about there was a seminar about downsizing and about transitioning to senior living communities, And the comment or the response was basically, we're not going anywhere. Okay, and I found that very early in my real estate career, because I've been, by the way, my name is Ted Gottlieb, so I'm a real estate agent by trade, a certified senior advisor, downsizing coach, and aging in place specialist. So what I try to do is provide resources, and I thought, well, if I became an expert in selling people's homes and they were older, I'd be golden. Well, I found out that most people didn't want to move, and depending on the statistics that you read, anywhere between 75 and 93% of older adults would rather age in place and go out feet first. So I said, okay, now what am I going to do with all these certifications, knowing that people don't want to sell their homes? So that's why I decided to help aging in place. Made a whole lot of sense, building relationships, referring them to people who can help them do that. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is staying put. So we're going to stay put, and we want to be able to do that safely, comfortably, and we also want to maintain the value of the home, because when the time does come to sell the house, the better shape that it is, probably the more you're going to be able to sell it for, maybe the quicker you're going to be able to sell it. So I think that makes a whole lot of sense. So today we're going to talk about keeping the home in good shape, and then protecting the home, and then being able to stay in there a little bit more comfortably. And then when Dennis gets here, we're going to talk about tapping the equity of the home if you need to, in order to stay put or in order to do something else. Okay, so we're going to do that. So we're going to start with Billy. Billy, you got the mic, right? There you go. Okay. So one of the most important things to me when it comes to selling a house is for it to be in good condition. Okay, now good condition, there's a spectrum of what's good and what's not, and what's updated and what's not, and I get that. We're not going to go into all of that. But the bones of the house, I think it's really, really important that we make sure that we take care of. Matter of fact, when we go to sell the house, one of the things we do is we try to put a punch list together so that we can make sure that the little things are in good shape, so that when a buyer comes in to do an inspection, that the little things are not going to get in the way of their dream home. So sometimes when there's a list that's this long of things that are not right with the house, because sometimes when you go to sell the house, the municipality requires an inspection, and they come in and they tear it up because there's light switches that don't work, there's all sorts of things that are not to code any longer, and it becomes an obstacle, and sometimes potential buyers will walk away. So I think it's really, really important. But even stepping away from selling the home and just going on the idea of staying put, we want to make sure we do it safely, right? Okay, so tell us a little bit more about Mr. Fix-It, which is the handyman side of what it is that you do. What are some of the more common things that you run across, whether it be what people are staying put or getting ready to sell, that are things that you can take care of, and that things that if we were a little bit more proactive, we wouldn't have to be dealing with?
All of the stuff goes all over the board, guys. They had a commercial out a couple of years ago about being nose blind, in your car. You don't notice the smells in your car. The same thing happens in your home. Small leaks underneath a sink in a vanity that can create stuff after a little while. The outlets. The big thing about outlets is now you have to have a GFCI outlet in your kitchens and bathrooms and stuff. Most of the older homes don't yet. So small things like that nobody really pays attention to that are pretty important. The sticking door. The door that closes all the time, won't stay open. All the little things, and that's what we do.
Well, and let's address the safety side of some of these things too, okay? Because you think about things like aluminum wiring and light switches that are 50 years old that are, back in the day you used to turn them on and you used to hear them click, and they used to be solid, and now you try it now and it's kind of a little wonky, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. Things like that.
Yeah, definitely on the light switches and all of that stuff. Aluminum wiring is very critical, that there's some specific things that you have to do with it versus copper wiring. The leaks are important too, because people get scared of water and electric, no doubt. So those are the things that we kind of take care of. We try to be proactive before the inspection reports start coming in, so that we're able to take care of the things in homeowners.
Gotcha. Then let's take it to the next step, which is upkeep and being proactive when it comes to the maintenance. Because one of the things that I find with a lot of my older adult clients, especially if they have mobility issues and there's a basement, they're not going downstairs to the lower level anymore. Let's just say they've moved the washer and dryer upstairs, and the basement is something that is there to hold the house up and to hold a lot of stuff that we no longer use.
And that is so true. You can't imagine the older people that just don't go down the basement anymore. The kids will do it, but they don't. Upkeep is a preventative maintenance program that we developed about 7, 8 years ago. What it does is it helps you understand what's going on. You know, you don't walk around your house every day or every week, especially maybe even not even after a storm. So we kind of take care of those things. We actually go downstairs and clean your furnace once a year. We clean your air conditioner once a year. We actually do preventative maintenance on all your appliances, whether it's washing machines, dryers. Dryer fires is a big thing. You know, we clean the dryer vents once a year. And it's actually preventative maintenance on it. Also with it comes home warranty. Home warranties have a really bad reputation. This is my company here in St. Louis, so we've got our own guys doing it. And it just helps better. If you decide to sell your home, you can show, just like you would a car, all the preventative maintenance stuff that was done to the house, and you're going to get a higher price in your home.
Right. What about the exterior of the home? Because I walked by a neighbor the other day. Jerry is probably in his mid-70s, and he's on a ladder over the front vestibule area, and his wife is down below on the ladder, putting her foot on the ladder, making sure. And I tend to be vocal, and I said, "Hey, Jerry, we don't want to lose you." You know, so we're joking with him. But how much on the outside of the homes do you take care of?
Yeah, we take care of almost all of the outside stuff. From the storms just recently, we were getting phone calls like crazy. Both companies. Upkeep doesn't really do a bunch on the outside of the house, but it does do like deck checking, you know, to make sure the decks are safe. Check your risers, making sure all of the stringers and everything else, there's no rot and stuff in them. So there's a ton of stuff we do outside. We actually walk around the house once a year and actually make notes of what needs to be done, or, hey, have you thought of this for somebody else to do? Are we?
Right, and then there's the roof as well. And I know we're in West County, and there was a little bit of wind that came through the other day. I know that we didn't get that hard here in O'Fallon, but literally 7 houses away from where I live, an F1 came through. Now, I had no idea that an F1 came through. The following morning, I walked, and you would never know that a tornado came through there. But then I came back and looked at my house, and I had some roofing shingles that shouldn't be doing what they were doing. So actually, Rick Hinkson from Eureka is going to be coming by today to walk it, to tell me whether it's just a small patch or a large patch that I need to take care of my roof, and whether it makes sense to make an insurance claim, which we'll talk about a little bit later, right? So we got all that going on. I want to go back and talk about the basement again, the lower level, because that's the area, again, that always seems to come to bite a lot of folks, especially if they have a history of having water issues in the basement or foundation issues and cracks and things like that. So I think it's really important that if you have that, and if you're using upkeep, or you've got somebody who's keeping an eye on the house, got to go down to the lower level, because I've seen lower levels where do you ever store anything in a cardboard box? Okay, I've seen cardboard boxes, and cardboard boxes tend to be relatively absorbent. So after you get that water that comes in, and if you don't know that the water came in, and that cardboard box starts to get a little musty smelling, and then potentially a fungal growth and all sorts of stuff, and it just goes from there. And then you got more of a little bit issue. So having somebody that comes in to look at it on an ongoing basis is really important.
And also, too, sump pumps. Sump pumps are a big thing. Most people don't pay any attention to them. You know, they got them in there, they work, they don't do nothing with them. Well, they fail. And it doesn't take much. I've got a story about a sump pump failing, and a sheet of paper, one sheet of paper went over the drain and stopped the drain. If there was over 2 feet of water in the basement, just from one sheet of paper. And just going down there once or twice a year and checking your sump pump is a big thing. Huge.
Right. From a safety perspective as well, why don't we talk a little bit about smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, water leak detection, that type of thing?
Yes, we actually been putting in a lot of water leak detections here lately. Those are an actual piece of, I don't know what to say, equipment that goes up underneath, say, your kitchen sink. So if all of a sudden you're on vacation, you may have seen some of the commercials for it, where it'll actually shut off the water, or it'll let you know that there's a leak there to call a neighbor to come over or whatever on it. So there are some different things there to help prevent that, and actually Good does really well with it.
So there are a whole house detectors, like it goes on the main water line,
Yes.
the Moen system, and there's a few other ones
Yes,
as well?
there are. And what it does is it's two different ways. One, it can trip that and shut off the whole water to the whole house off of that valve you install, or it can notify you so you can do it, or your neighbors or something.
Right.
Smoke detectors, carbon monoxide. Smoke detectors. I'm a retired fireman. Every 10 years you need to change them, or 7. They just don't last long. All of a sudden they don't work and you don't even know it. So, and then you can't mismatch them. In other words, if one goes out and it's a kitty and you've got another ABC over here, they don't not compatible. So if you change them, you need to change all of them. We do it, tell homeowners at least every 5 years or so to make sure you change them out.
Right. And some of those smokes too now work on Bluetooth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Which is pretty cool. So if you have maybe you're hard of hearing, or you just want to make sure that if something goes on the lower level, it trips what's going on upstairs.
Yes.
And it's not hardwired, they're just the battery type. They talk
Yes.
to each other, right?
Yes, they do, especially through the Bluetooth, Wi-Fi.
Right.
Yes. Carbon monoxides too. There's been some discrepancies about carbon monoxides. They have a smoke detector with CO2, carbon monoxide on it. I personally suggest separate. It just seems to work better. I think you get better quality on them, but you have to have it if you've got gas in your house. There's too much liability there on it. Matter of fact, I got a picture this morning from an inspector, home inspector. There's a cracked flue line on the flue going up from the basement there. It's got a big old crack in it. They didn't know it. That's where people die.
Right. And you mentioned a house that has gas. I'll give you another story. My mom lives in a subdivision that's all electric. No need for carbon monoxide detector, right?
That's right.
Wrong. You know why? Somebody parked their car in the garage, forgot to turn it off, didn't survive to talk about it. Okay? So that happens.
Yes.
That kind of stuff happens, especially as we maybe get a little older. So those are things to think about. So smoke detector in the garage, good idea,
No,
bad idea?
No.
Okay.
No, don't do it.
Don't do it? Why?
False readings. It's like putting one in the kitchen where you're cooking. You get a
Right.
false reading.
Oh, you've seen me cook.
Actually, I have. But yeah, you don't, common sense. You guys probably remember when they first came out and you put them in the kitchen, they'd go off. And you have to fan it and all of this stuff like
Right.
that. So yeah, they're a lot better now than they were back then. But that's it.
Yeah, I think they have heat detectors too, and there's some other things,
Some
like
of them
some of the
do, yeah,
alarm
some of them,
systems have that tied into it as well.
Yeah, through ADT and some of the other ones, yes.
Yeah, it's like, good thing I'm not paranoid about anything.
Yeah, right.
I've got them everywhere. So I've got heat, I got smoke, I got water detection. I need to get the whole house one though. And we can talk about that, because I've heard pros and cons of it.
Yeah, you have to.
Okay, so
You
interesting.
guys got any questions on any of this so far?
I have one too, because oftentimes when we have these type of discussions, we don't talk price. And I love making the panelists squirm a little bit. It's like part of the joy of life. So it's like me walking into a listing appointment, and so the first thing someone says is, how much? What's it going to cost, right? But give folks an idea as it relates to the upkeep maintenance program and what handyman services tend to run.
Upkeep, we have 2 or 3 different programs. We've got where you can go 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and those are naturally the cheaper ones. But overall, it's less than $100 a month is what it amounts to for a full service stuff on it, whether it's a year program or 2 or 3 year. We also have a vanishing deductible. Everybody has a deductible, just like insurance would with Matt. Ours goes down $25 every year. So it's what we call it a vanishing deductible. So after 4 or 5 years, you don't have a deductible, but you're still covered on everything. On Mr. Fix-It side, we do how do I want to say that? We actually come out and we'll itemize those items. So if you got 5 or 6 items or 30 items, we itemize each one of them out so you kind of pick and choose on what you've got. So you can say, okay, I want to do this, this, and this month, but I want to save the other stuff and do it later on. And, typically $500,000. I mean, that's a typical one. That kind of help?
Right. No, it does. So you'll come in and basically survey the property,
Yep.
Like oftentimes when it comes for a pre-home inspection, I'll say, I noticed these 11 things. But while you're there, Billy, put your fireman hat on and put your
Yes.
inspector hat on and see other things that I'm not seeing.
Yes.
And then let's talk about what that would cost to fix. Insurances and things like that that you have, and how do you compare who I lovingly call Chuck in a truck to someone who has bricks and mortar,
Yeah.
who has insurance and things like that? How important is it to have somebody who's insured?
Oh, gosh, it's extremely important, guys. You understand. You've all heard or seen where somebody's gotten taken advantage of by a contractor. Missouri, unfortunately, anybody with a pickup truck and a ladder can be a contractor. You have to do due diligence. You have to make sure they got work comp. They got to make sure you got liability insurance. For your own sake. There's horror stories out there of a handyman down the street that fell off of a roof and sued the homeowner. And it was his own fault for falling off the roof. But there's some certain things, and Matt can go deeper into that easily. But you got to make sure you got due diligence on it. Make sure they're not working out of their house or whatever and stuff. Make sure they understand what's going on. Most all of my guys are all older guys. Most all my crews between 40 and 62. It's hard to get anybody under 40 that really knows trades and what they're doing.
Right. What about payment up front and all those type of things?
We always request 50% down to get on the list. That's just what we've done all those years. We do it easily through, when I send you an estimate, you go right online and pay half down on it. At the end of it, we provide you with a paid lien waiver, or a paid invoice and a lien waiver. That protects you guys. That we've paid our suppliers and materials and stuff like that. You need to get that no matter who's working on your house. You really should.
Right, and the lien waivers are also important
Yes.
when it comes to selling the house as well,
Yes.
because the title companies will ask you what work you've had done in recent period of time, and they're going to want to have paid in full receipts and lien waivers. So make sure when you're interviewing folks that they're going to cooperate and give you those things. Chuck in a truck probably doesn't have the lien waiver.
Or liability.
Or liability. So yeah, I'd say be careful with that. It's always tempting to go with the least expensive thing, and I keep telling the story. I've tried a couple times, and I've cheaped out to ultimately come back and call Billy or call a professional to come in and do the work that I thought I was going to get inexpensively done. And and every time I do it, I kick myself and said I'm not going to do it again, and then I do it again. So I promise from this point forward, brand names only, right?
That's it. Yes, sir.
It's the only way to do it. All right, let's pass this down to Brian, and let's talk about specifically aging in place. Now, you're a certified aging in place specialist,
I
yes?
am, like yourself. Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
I actually didn't renew it recently, but I need to get back into it. But I was at CAPS for 12 years. But aging in place is really important. Describe for us, first of all, your passion for aging in place, why it is you're doing what you're doing, and what it takes to become a certified aging in place specialist.
Sure. So starting with the first question, the business I'm in, it's a franchise business, which I purchased last year. I looked at several businesses, but the reason I chose this one was because my mother was a quadriplegic for the last 6 years of her life. So she was in a wheelchair, and I was very familiar with how difficult it is for somebody to try to stay in their home and just get around in general if you're in a wheelchair. So incredibly empathetic to everybody who I talk to when I'm going about my daily business. Certified aging in place specialist, aside from paying a fee, you go through a 3-day training. It's administered through the National Association of Home Builders. And it's an online training, but it's interactive. It's not like you can just sit there and press the button to make them think you're not asleep. It was a pretty rigorous training, and I learned quite a bit. So that helps me do my everyday job, in that I can walk into someone's home and do an assessment or an evaluation and be keenly aware of where I need to focus my attention and provide solutions for that customer.
Great. So let's talk about the evaluations. I get your name somehow. Billy refers it. Matt refers you, or they find you online and they say, I'm coming back from rehab, or I've had an accident, or I've been in a wheelchair for a while. I want to stay put. I don't want to move. Can you come take a look and see how you can help me help myself stay in my home longer? What's the evaluation look like?
Sure. So there's basically two reasons I'm going out. One could be someone's weighing their options to make a decision. Do I want to stay in my home, or do I want to move to independent living or assisted living or something along those lines? So I could be coming in to do an entire evaluation of the entire home, or more commonly, I'm called out for a specific purpose. Someone says, I just need help getting in and out of the front of my house. I probably need a ramp, or I'm interested to see what other options there are. So I do a free evaluation. As my name implies, next day access. We typically try to get out the same day to do an evaluation, if not the next day. And again, it's a free evaluation. And then from there, the next day implies if someone needed something installed by the next day, that's kind of what we would do. In fact, we've even done things on the same day. Gotten a phone call, hey, Dad's being released from rehab. Case manager didn't tell us until this morning. He's coming home this afternoon. I know you can't put a ramp in, but when can you? And I would say, well, I'll put a ramp in today if Dad needs to come home today. So we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that the customer has accessibility when they need. But I can go through the entire home. Like I said, if it's a ramp situation that they think they need, I might be able to provide other options. So it's not always a ramp. It could be a vertical platform lift. It could be a stair lift. So there's a variety of products that I have at my disposal that I can make recommendations on to try to address that situation.
Great. And taking my CAPS education and just thinking about walking through the house, there are simple things that we can do that we should be thinking about, and that's the evaluation of lighting. I always talk about my mom. She's getting ready to turn 94. My mom walks around her house with the lights off almost all the time. Now, daylight, it's not so bad, but at nighttime, she's walking around, the lights are barely on. Now, I don't know it's because if the light bothers her eyes, or if because she's trying to save on energy expenditures and things like that, but the lights are off all the time. And when I'm there to visit her and she's out of town, I'll flick some light on and say, so now you can see where you're going, okay? Or if she's at the cutting board and it's still relatively dark, she's cutting whatever she's cutting and it's dark, and I just don't get it, right? So lighting is really, really important, because if you have good lighting and if your flooring is of a certain type and if you don't have throw rugs to trip over and you've got grab bars where you need to have grab bars, the odds of falling are less and less and less, right? So I think it's really important. So talk us through about just walking around with no particular needs expressed.
Right.
What are you looking for?
So again, clear pathways, wide enough hallways and doorways, the front entry to the home, and often it may not be for the homeowners themselves, also for having friends over who might be handicapped or disabled. So we're looking for that type of those conditions. Lighting for sure, as Ted mentioned. Under cabinet lighting under the counters is great for the counters. So mom chopping onions, that certainly improves things there. Colors. Contrasting colors, particularly on steps, is extremely important. Oftentimes, vision is impaired somewhat, so contrasting steps, contrasting colors can be helpful. Slip-free surfaces are great. In the kitchen, obviously, things like a microwave drawer instead of a microwave where somebody has to reach up where it's down below, or having the dishes down below in a drawer instead of up above in higher areas. Bathrooms are one area where there's just a tremendous need. It's the #1 area where people are falling. So grab bars can be in a variety of places there. You should have 2 or 3 in the shower, 2 or 3 around the commode, 1 outside of the shower. You can have a toilet tissue holder that it serves as a grab bar also. Oftentimes you'll see, I was in a house last month, elderly woman, and she was around her sink, there were drywall, there were holes in the drywall where the towel bars used to be, because she was leaning on those towel bars as grab bars, and she'd pull them all off of the wall. So you can use a grab bar as a towel bar, but not vice versa. So things like that. Again, back to the bathroom and the shower, barrier-free entries into the shower are huge. A lot of people have bathtubs, and that's maybe the only bathroom in the home, but they want to be able to shower. We can provide things like a tub cut, where we cut out the front section of the tub and either leave it open entirely, or we put a removable or swingable door in place so that it can be used as either a tub or a shower. Those are the main areas, I think.
Right, and then there you can also just redo the entire bathroom, I assume, and gut it.
Yes.
Get the countertops where they're supposed to be. I mean, you mentioned grab bars and towel bars. Yeah, towel bars aren't necessarily screwed into the studs, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's very important. So when we put a grab bar up, we're always looking for a stud in the wall, and we use a special device that works off of your phone, where it looks into the wall and looks for not only the studs in the wall, but it also looks for plumbing and electric and pipes. So we're not screwing into one of those by accident. So we're always finding a stud in the wall when we put a grab bar up.
Oh, that's a cool app. You'll have to show me what that
Yeah, it's called a Wallabot. Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called a Wallabot.
Wallabot?
Yeah.
All right, that sounds very cool.
Yeah. Very cool.
Oh, very neat. So you mentioned grab bars. And grab bars, if you're not trained in regard to where the grab bars go, that's also an issue, right? So I know sometimes occupational therapists will come in and do that, or if you're trained, you know where they're supposed to go. But I've actually seen situations where the OT, occupational therapist, will come into the house and say, show me how you shower. Clothes are on, by the way, okay? But show me how you shower. Get in the shower. Where do you grab? What do you do? And then based upon that and your ability to lift your arms and do whatever, like a grab bar up here is not going to do you any good if you can't get your arm up. So very important in regard to placement. How do these modifications impact the saleability of the home, in your opinion?
You know, I don't think it detracts from the price of the home. I think in some cases it could actually increase the price. You know, there's a variety of products that we offer that are going to be universal. You know, we can do a residential elevator. And, you know, people think, well, I can't even afford an elevator. And they're not inexpensive. You're probably $35,000 to $45,000 to put one in your home. But if you have an elevator in your home, I would say that increases the value of your home. Almost everything I sell can be removed. So a stair lift that we put on, it gets screwed into the stair treads, but it can be removed very easily. All the ramps that I put in could be easily removed. If it's installed properly, it's maybe got 2 screws at the threshold of the door, but those holes can be patched in. So everything can be removed. And then there are things, I was talking with these guys earlier, you know, we sell products that are actually very beautiful. There's a product called the Flex Step, which is great for the garage, where it's in a very tight space. It starts out as stairs, it folds down into a platform. Somebody on a walker or a wheelchair gets on the platform, they go up and they go into the home, and then it reverts back to stairs at the end. This is a product that's made in Denmark, and you get, you know, finish options, the type of wood, the color, all this kind of thing. So it actually enhances the beauty of the home, albeit it could be in the garage, but it could be, you know, inside the home as well. So there, I really have no examples where it's really decreased the value of the home.
What kind of cost is involved in something like that platform?
So that Flex Step product that I just described is also not inexpensive. You're between $20,000 and $25,000, but you know, most of my products are much less expensive than that.
Yeah, I would say some of the fixes are very inexpensive. A grab bar is what?
Grab bar installed is around $200, kind of the average price. You know, a stair lift probably around $4,000 installed, and then ramps is a wide variety based on the size, but you're anywhere from, you know, $1,500 to, you know, $3,000 for a, you know, 12-foot section of ramp. It could be $200 for just a portable ramp. And again, we'll rent these products too. So not everybody can afford to pay these, you know, full price. So if that's the case, they want to rent them, I'm more than happy to give them the rental price.
Right. Does veterans benefits or Medicare cover the expenses of any of these?
Medicare almost never does. Veterans, VA for sure covers almost everything that I sell. Even that beautiful Flex Step, they've paid for those too. So that's just working with the contact at the VA, making sure you have a quote from a legitimate source, and working with your VA contact to get them to authorize payment.
Right. One of the things that I didn't mention is aging aware, and we just started a 501c3. Right now we're fundraising, but what we're hoping to do is raise enough money to give back to the community, needs-based, in order to help offset some of the costs of things that people are going to incur when it comes to either aging in place or transitioning. So, yeah, so we're working on that, but it's called Aging Aware, and you'll know we're starting to brand it. As you'll notice, it's on the front cover there. It's on the banner. You know, I'm not quite sure what the municipalities are able to offer at this point. We can certainly look into it. I mean, I know there's resources, but I don't know how flush the municipalities are. But it would be nice if they're able to do that. I'm just not familiar with who does. Anybody know? Yeah, I don't know either. City of O'Fallon, no? Yes.
So I work for Hi, I'm Melissa. I work for the city in the Grants and Assistance Division. And I'm here actually to just kind of learn about what everything that you have with aging in place. And so we work with a lot of different resources and things. So with our department, we get funding through the HUD, through Housing and Urban Development for Community Development Block Grant. So that's how we get a lot of funding, but I can speak that funding is also very limited. So most times municipalities are not able to provide funding with that kind of thing.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we've gotten calls from you, especially over here in O'Fallon. Hey, go over here and check this for a ramp or grab bars and different things like that. And then I've submitted them, and they've paid them.
Through the city, they've paid it?
I thought it was either O'Fallon or St. What the other one?
Yeah, so that's great. Yeah, so call the city of O'Fallon, right?
Yeah.
And then other municipalities, you can check and see what the municipality, or you can call myself, Senior Learning Institute, and we can do some digging for you as well. Right?
Something else that I recently learned about, the state of Missouri has something called MODAT, M-O-D-A-T, and it's a 50% tax credit for many of the products that I sell. But there is an income threshold. I think it's $60,000 of annual gross income or less. But you can apply for this tax credit. But there's also a limited amount of resources available there. I think it's only $100,000 maybe from the state per year. But I think you can apply. I think it's up to either $2,500 or $5,000. So.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. All right, appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to, I was going to ask one other question. Sorry, Matt, premature. Stair lifts. Oftentimes, stair lifts are used to go from the main floor to a second level, but I've seen stair lifts that have been used from the main floor down to the lower level to access laundry if we don't move laundry up. So 2 questions. How complicated it is to move the laundry up to the main floor? And 2, if that's not possible, how do we tie in the stair lift in order to be able to accomplish that?
I'm not sure I'm following your question exactly. I'm sorry.
All right, so I want access to the basement, or I need to get access to the basement because I need to do laundry. Okay, so can I put a stair lift, which normally I think of going upstairs to the bedrooms.
Sure, yeah.
Can I put a stair lift going
Sure.
downstairs to the lower level?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Stair lifts can go anywhere for the most part, indoors or outdoors. But a straight stair lift, as long as you have power and the stairway is wide enough, you're good to go. I've got stair lifts that can fit down to a 24-inch wide stair. And then, so most people have seen a straight stair lift, but they make custom curved stair lifts too. So you could have one stair lift that will go continuously from the basement where the washer and dryer are, up the stairs, and then up the second set of stairs up to where the bedroom or wherever you want to take it is.
Right.
So.
Okay, and then how complicated is it to move the laundry from the basement to the second floor or main floor? All right.
Yeah, we do a lot of those. It can be a couple of different things depending upon the situation. We've made what we call wet rooms, where everything's all in the open and it doesn't matter where any of the water goes, for wheelchairs and stuff like that on it. To bring up from the basement on up, is each one's individually evaluated on it. It's not that difficult, but you're going to lose something upstairs. You're going to lose some space either by the old one of the older bathrooms, or a closet, or even sometimes a bedroom. I've seen them do a small 9x9 bedroom and put that into a laundry room with hanging shelves and everything else in there on it. It just depends upon how the water and sewer and all of that is run.
Right, you have to have access to
Yes.
to sewer stack
Yes.
somewhere, plumbing stack, and water.
Yes, and then depending upon electric or gas for dryer.
Right.
Yes, because you got to run 220 on that part. We do quite a few of them. That's why do a lot of that.
Right, and I've also seen washer and dryers added to a bedroom on main floor or second floor, but mostly main floors, but it's in a closet. So they basically open up the closet area and put all the plumbing into the wall of the closet so that when the next person comes to live in that home, they don't lose that bedroom space. They can simply just use it as a closet,
That's right.
but the existing homeowner can use it for a washer and dryer.
And actually, the resale value is really good. If you've got one in the basement, you bring it up to the first floor, the resale value is a lot better.
Yeah, Mrs. Phillips, who owned our house before us, did that for us, and we thank her every time we do laundry. So thank you, Esther Phillips. All right, let's talk about insurance. The mortgage is paid off. Let's just make that assumption real quick. The mortgage is paid off. Do I need to have insurance on my house?
Usually the only requirement is going to be by the mortgage company. There's no other requirement that makes you have it. However, it's probably a really good idea to have it. Even if you're not worried about rebuilding your house, like if you think, okay, if this house burns down or the tornado takes it away, I'm not going to rebuild it. I'm just going to leave the lot and then go into assisted living, go live with my kids, something like that. You're still responsible for getting all the carcinogens left over, all the debris left over from that house fire, which I've seen some of those go up to like $100,000. So even if you have just basic fire insurance, it's still a really good idea to have something on your home so that in the worst case scenario, you're not going to be out hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right, and if you chose, I'm thinking about like the investor point of view. So the house burns down, the investor buys it, the investor will take care of all that, all the cleanup, but still you're leaving tons of money on the table because the investor is buying it and they're buying it at 40, 50 cents on the dollar.
Correct.
Right, yeah, so you got to be careful. There's no easy way around it.
No.
Okay. Is insurance more expensive if the property is unoccupied, or does it matter?
Yeah, it definitely does matter. So there's going to be several types of home insurance policies. Most common, which you're probably used to, is going to be called the primary homeowner's insurance. And even off of that, there's going to be several types of homeowner's insurance. But if the home is vacant or unoccupied, you really need to have a conversation with your agent, because if it's past 30 days, really good chance that your contract's going to be voided and any losses after those 30 days are not going to be covered. So if you're taking an extended trip somewhere, say for 30 days, 45 days, something like that, call your agent and at least let them know so it's documented. And when I mean documented, don't just call them and tell them about it. Have them send you an email, or you send them an email with confirmation so that you have written documentation. Because most insurance contracts out there, if your house is unoccupied for more than 30 days, the contract is going to be void and no losses will be paid.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about the basics of homeowners insurance. How do you determine what the proper amount of insurance is?
If there's a mortgage, the mortgage company is going to have a requirement. They want to make sure that their investment is going to be covered. So they're going to have a minimum amount. After that, then it really comes down to what the homeowner is going to be comfortable with. You know, the whole idea for insurance is to protect your assets. So if you're comfortable only covering 80% of your home's value, well, that's up to you, right? But then there's others that want to make sure that if every little thing is taken care of, including you know, what is called marring on the gutters, if you have a hailstorm and it's just cosmetic damage, you want to get those replaced. You don't want to have to worry about that cosmetic eyesore. So it really just depends on the homeowner, and that, again, comes with the conversation. I would, you know, I'm an agent. I talk to my clients, my employees talk to their clients. I would highly recommend you talk to somebody, explain what you want, because each and every homeowner is going to be different.
Right, and it seems like if I have insurance, let's just say I have insurance and I'm worried about the company that insures me, or I want to make sure I'm paying what I should be paying. I want to do an insurance review, right?
100%.
Okay.
And I would probably recommend doing that at least on an annual basis. And it's going to depend on your individual needs and desires, maybe concerns about the house. Maybe you've put in stair lifts and you just invested $30,000 to put in stair lifts. Well, guess what? If your homeowner's policy that you wrote or renewed 6 months ago doesn't have that accounted for, and there's a total loss, your $30,000 is just blown out the window. You don't have any coverage for it.
How do I know? When I got insurance on my house, and I shopped insurance at one point, I got a couple of quotes, but none of those agents had been to my house. How do you know what you're insuring as it relates to contents and everything else and the quality of my finishes compared to Mr. McCall's finishes? How do I know that I'm actually being insured properly?
Sure. And there's a lot of information online to us as insurance agents. I mean, if your house has been bought or sold in the last even 10 years, there's a ton of information. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has all the information. So again, when I quote out a homeowner's policy, I'm going through everything from the age of the roof to the type of flooring you have, to the type of fixtures you have in your kitchen. I mean, it really comes down to having that conversation to make sure that everything that you've invested your time and your money in your home is going to be covered in the event of a loss.
What's the idea of replacement value versus not having replacement value?
Huge. So the industry term is going to be called actual cash value, or ACV. The other term is called replacement cost value, or RCV. And a lot of times it's in the very small print. And you want to make sure that you understand the difference in the two. Replacement costs means you're going to get, if you had hailstorm from the last couple of days, you're going to get a brand new roof with replacement cost coverage. You're going to be out of pocket for your deductible, and then that's going to be it. Actual cash value, or ACV, means that you're going to get knocked off for depreciation. If your roof is 20 years old, really good chance that has depreciated down to nothing, and that roof is going to be completely out of pocket for you as the homeowner.
So if you're doing an insurance review, make sure you're comparing apples to apples, because
Correct.
yours is $500 more than that one. Therefore, I'm going to go with yours, not knowing that there's a little bit of fine print there.
That is correct.
Is there a lot of fine print in insurance
There
policies?
There is a lot of fine print. And in fact, that's a really good reason why I recommend you have a review with your agent every single year, because with the insurance market as it is right now, and it really, the last 3 or 4 years, it's been chaos. We've had severe weather losses. We've had an increased number of automobile crashes. Everybody has seen their insurance rates go up year after year after year, especially, usually it's 2 or 3% a year. The last 3 or 4 years, it's been 20%, 30%. And when you are talking with your insurance agent about having those reviews, it's very important to ask what changed from last year to this year, because again, it's going to be in the small print. There's a lot of carriers that changed the minimum deductible for your homeowner's policy this year. So it used to be $1,000 was kind of standard across the board. Most carriers in Missouri now, they now have what is called a 1% wind and hail deductible, which means that's 1% of the dwelling value or rebuild cost of your home. If you have a $500,000 home, then your deductible on wind and hail is going to be $5,000. And a lot of times they sneak that in there and don't tell you about it. So it's very important to have those reviews and the conversations and explain exactly it is what you're looking for, because a lot of times the carriers will make changes without your knowledge, because every year is a different contract.
Got it. Now, you mentioned dwelling value, and that had me thinking about land and dwelling, right? Because the insurance that we're getting is not necessarily on the land. Is that correct? Because the land value stays the same?
Correct. That is correct. So if you're looking at your homeowner's policy, it's called the declaration page. The dwelling is going to be what the insurance company estimates is the rebuild cost of your house. It's not what it's worth. What it's worth includes the land, all right, or how much is somebody's willing to pay you. It's what we, as the insurance agent, helps quote unquote build that house within the policy so that we have what you want. Hopefully replacement cost coverage, so you don't have any surprises if there is a claim. But that's how you get the dwelling amount, is by looking at not necessarily the like something on those online Zillow or Realtor. It's a very different number. It's the rebuild cost of the house.
Got it. Now, you mentioned the C word, claim.
Yes.
We want to be careful with that one, right? So how do we know when it makes sense to make a claim versus not?
So the first thing I would tell you is if you call your insurance agent and you say, okay, we just had some hail through our area. I'd like to know, about getting a new roof or about filing a claim or whatever. If they tell you, great, here's the 800 number for the claims office, call it. I would run away from that agent as fast as possible, because the second you call that 800 claim number, you have a claim on your record and it stays there for 5 years. You will probably lose a claims-free discount. You will also probably, or you will have what is called a clue report that keeps track of how many claims that you have. It doesn't matter if you were paid any money or not, there's still going to be a claim there. And if you ever get sick and tired of your insurance company and you want to shop around, guess what? The other insurance company that's looking at your clue record says, oh, this person filed this claim, this person filed that claim, so we're going to charge them X amount more because they are now a high risk. So if you think you may have a claimable event, then the first thing I do is call your agent, see if he has any recommendations for a roofer or a plumber. Call Billy up. Have somebody go out there with knowledge of what the problem is, get an estimate, and then decide if it's worth paying my deductible, worth having that claim on my record. In my opinion, if you're going to file a claim, I would want it to be for something $5,000, $10,000 or more, because you could eventually pay over those 5 years where that claim is on your record. You could pay a lot more than that over time on your premium.
Yeah, or I'm thinking if you have too many claims, you could get dropped, because I've seen that happen as well.
That's very common, especially the last couple of years. Very, very common.
Right. Yeah, and that clue report can come back and bite you when it comes time to sell the home, believe it or not, because what happens is I've got a buyer, we go look at a house, we get it under contract, I say call your insurance agent and just make sure that the house is insurable and get a feel for what it's going to cost, right? And then the insurance agent runs that clue report and sees that there were 3 claims and they were water related and whatever it was, and even though there may have been nothing wrong, they made claims. The insurance company may want documentation that shows what was done to the house, how it was improved, and they may want to go out and actually look at the house to make sure there isn't any moisture issues or whatever it's going to be. So it can be really, really problematic. So It's a catch-22, because you want to make the claim because you want to get what you think you deserve, rightly deserve, and you've paid for, but you've got to be careful what you make that claim for.
That's correct. And before I forget, Billy had mentioned something about certificate of insurance. So if you ever have somebody that comes in and does work inside your home, I would highly, highly, highly recommend, to protect yourself and your home, to get what is called a certificate of insurance from that vendor or worker coming into your home. And make sure that they not just hand you a piece of paper that they carry around with them, have them list yourself as the homeowner as what is called the certificate holder. Because there's a lot of fly-by-night companies out there. What did you call them? A Terry by truck or something like that?
Chuck and a truck.
Yeah, Chuck a truck.
Yeah.
That they will buy the insurance policy for a day, print out 100 different copies and hand them out, and then cancel it the next day to get all their money back. Make sure they list you as the homeowner in the certificate of insurance. It's going to be in the lower left-hand corner of the certificate of insurance, so that you know the policy is current, you know that their premiums are paid, so the event of a loss while they're working on their house, you are going to be covered.
All right, so what if they did all that and then pulled it back the next day? Is it wise for me to call the insurance carrier to make sure that that insurance is current?
Why, Ted? Yes, it is.
How about that? That's called a slam dunk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, Billy mentioned aluminum wiring. There are a lot of homes that still have aluminum wiring. Really good chance if you do have aluminum wiring and you have not disclosed it to the homeowner's insurance, any event from a loss from the aluminum wiring, probably not covered. A lot of carriers do not cover homes with aluminum wiring in it right now. So if you have aluminum wiring and you have a question about it, maybe secretively call your agent and say, hey, does my homeowner's policy cover aluminum wiring? And go from there.
Hypothetically speaking, right. So, yeah, and aluminum wiring is becoming a big deal, and it's been around forever, and Billy will tell you aluminum wiring comes into everybody's house, right, into the main, but it's the aluminum wiring and the connections between those and the outlets and the switches and copper wiring that connects to that creates problems, right? Right, so the special fittings, the Alumicon and everything else that's out there, there are still insurance companies who will not insure that house, even though it's been professionally taken care of by a licensed electrician, yes?
Correct. Yeah, and 100% correct on the licensed electrician, which reminds me about the water leak detection system. Most homeowners' policy will give you a huge discount if you have a professionally and certified installer install that water leak detection system. Yes, it's the number one is actually wind and hail. Yeah, but the number two and most destructive is water. Water can go from $5,000 to $100,000 overnight. It is no joke.
So define huge discount.
I've seen anywhere from 5 to, in a lot of cases, 20% on your homeowner's premium.
Wow. Under $1,000 from what I understand, right? Yeah. Yeah, there's, I've heard a variety of things, positive and negatives, in regard to, like, if all of a sudden you put the faucet on real quick and somebody else puts the faucet on real quick, it'll fool the system and shut your water off. Right, so I don't know that they've perfected it yet.
It's a little bit better.
Is it better now? Great. Can you use the mic real quick? Use the mic and then, yes.
It's for him.
All right, well, you can switch it back.
I've got one just this week that the insurance company wouldn't pay for the knob and tube wiring. They wouldn't insure the house for the knob and tube wiring, and that particular real estate transaction went, bottoms up. Just recent.
Yep, knob and tube is going to be thrown in the exact same category as the aluminum wiring. Most, and I mean like 99% of the homeowners carriers will not accept knob and tube. So it's you're either going to have to find, and I know of actually one of them just stopped writing in the state of Missouri. I'm sure there's somebody that does it, but if you don't disclose that, then there's a really good chance that there's not going to be any coverage.
And you won't find that around here, guys, at all. It's all in South St. Louis mostly. South St. Louis, Central West End, that kind of stuff.
It's probably very old. The
Well,
basic knob and tube is that you're talking
Yes.
stuff that's close to 100 years old.
That is correct.
And what's really odd about it is the electrical union, the licensed electricians, it's still code. It's still, they say it's safe, but the insurance companies won't. It's a little.
Yeah, so knob and tube can get really, really tricky. So, sometimes even knob and tube is removed from the panel and removed from the lower level, but in these old homes with plaster walls, it's going through the walls and it's in the attic, right? So what is a homeowner supposed to do when they want to go sell their house and has knob and tube, other than just replace the electrical?
Well, yeah, you're probably either going to have to, at minimum, and you may have to talk to your insurance carrier about that, but at minimum, you're going to have to disconnect all current from the existing knob and tube, put in a new circuit breaker, and hope that they accept that. Worst case scenario, they have to rip everything out.
Wow, let's not go there, because that's scary. All right, so we talked about insurance reviews. What, if anything else, do we need to make sure we cover before we pass it down to Mr. Cooper?
Just honestly, I would. There's so much out there online that's available, and it's very convenient. But if you're worried at all about protecting what, in most cases, is probably going to be your biggest asset, call your agent, have the conversation. If you have questions, you can call me. You know, there's a lot of really good agents out there, and there's, like I was mentioning before, if they tell you to call the 800 claim number, I'd probably find a different agent.
Right.
That's just my recommendation.
Hold on one
Just
second.
one thing which we found out when we were, this year ago, we had done some improvements, so we put a new patio cover was put on by things. So, you know, I called my insurance guy and said, oh, would you do anything else? Oh, yeah, well, I put in new windows, which were Noel Anderson, new furnace and AC unit. Oh, you didn't know. I ended up saving 10% because all this stuff is all the new code things. And it's like, oh, that's nice to know.
Yes, it
So,
is.
let your insurance agent know if you do anything to the house, basically.
Right, and the other thing I'll suggest too, when we knew that the storms were coming last week, I took video of the entire contents of my home. That was not only on my phone, but it was in the cloud, just in case my phone and I were no longer around, right? So
Yeah.
there was something to be said for that.
So that's a really good point. I would highly recommend, again, doing that. And I would, rather than still videos, photos, take a video. It's just a little bit easier on you. But if you've ever had a total loss claim, you've got a section on your homeowner's property that's called personal property, right? And that's going to be everything that's in your home that's not attached to the walls, essentially. So think of things like your clothes, your furniture, things like that. Well, it also includes little things like your pantry. How many thousands of dollars do you have just sitting in your refrigerator, your freezer, and your pantry? I mean, get that stuff documented, because when you have a total loss claim or a fire claim or a tornado or something like that, you have to list all that stuff. And it's not like you're going to remember that you bought, you know, a case of mac and cheese a while ago, but that's your money. You've got coverage on your policy, get it listed, right? So just every once in a while, go through your house and document the things you have in those worst case scenarios.
Last question, whole house generator, increased value, decreased value, any insurance discounts as a result of it?
I don't know of any discounts for a whole house generator. I don't know of any discounts for that. However, I do know it's going to probably make it a lot more convenient for you as a homeowner. And what was the first part of the question?
I don't know.
Oh, but if you do have one installed, number one, obviously make sure that it's done by a licensed electrician.
Right.
Number one, but number two, also, those are expensive, right? Those are very expensive. I would, again, call your agent and let them know, so that that's going to be added to your policy in the event of a loss.
Yeah, when you think about aging in place, we've got a couple neighbors that have them, and one of them has to be on oxygen all the time, right? One of them has sleep apnea, variety of things. So sometimes there are certain needs medically that you need, and you need power for, keep the insulin cold or whatever, you know. So maybe there's a real good reason for having that, whether insurance benefits or not.
And maybe that's where you, especially if you're a veteran, contact the VA and see if they would cover something like that, or at least give a portion to that. That's a really good idea.
Right, so there you go. All right, let's go down to Mr. Cooper. Dennis, would you be so kind to introduce yourself to everybody? Then I've got some questions for you.
Billy, it's good seeing you. I actually saw Kevin earlier this week. I had coffee with him. Yeah, well, you know. That's why I was so happy to see you filling in for him. No, my name is Dennis Cooper. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Federal Savings Bank. We are the largest veteran-owned bank in America. I work strictly with seniors, helping them access the equity that they build up in their home. I'm active with both senior groups and veteran groups. In fact, I host a veteran group for the Kaufman Fund. That's where I was this morning. That's why Ted allows me to show up a little late. So
Only because I like Wayne.
he's hard not to like.
Hey, it's true. Okay, so Let's talk about that, because what I was hoping that you can share with us today is we talked about spending money. Okay, these guys, all they want us to do is spend money, right?
Right.
But sometimes money can be tight, or we don't want to tap our investments, or we want to be able to use the equity in our home in order to be able to help us afford to do what we want to do. So let's talk about that. What are some of the ways that we can tap the equity in the home? And let's just make assumptions that there's no mortgage, but then you can also talk about the fact if there is a mortgage, how we go about that.
Sure. Obvious ones are you can refi your current conventional mortgage if you have one. You can do a cash out refi. If you don't have a mortgage, you can do a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. All of those things are available, but if you're a homeowner and you've been in your home for, let's say, 20 years or more, at some point you probably had a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. You may have tapped into it, you may not have, but it's an access to the equity you built up in your home. I work with a product which is actually a home equity conversion mortgage, which is a type of HELOC. It's referred to as a reverse mortgage by the public. There's still some bad thinking about a reverse mortgage. When I do a reverse mortgage seminar, typically I ask for a show of hands how many people have heard something negative about a reverse mortgage. Used to be half the room would raise their hands. Since Tom Selleck started working for me, it's down to 1 or 2 people raising their hands. He's such a nice guy. Everybody believes him. But the 2 things that people come up with is, one, the lender's going to take my house, which nothing could be further from the truth. If you think about it, with a reverse mortgage, you borrow equity from your home. You never have to make a payment. You're in charge of that. If you don't make a payment, interest accrues and the balance goes up. The longer you stay in your house and don't make payments, the more interest accrues, the more money the lender's going to get at the end. Okay, so it pays for the lender to help you stay in the home as long as possible. So if the desire is to stay in your home, this is an ideal product. Well, if the interest accrues long enough, it's possible that what you owe on the house exceeds what the house is worth. And then you're concerned about, well, how am I leaving my heirs this huge loss? This is a fully insured loan. It's the only mortgage product I know that's fully insured. And that insurance kicks in when your loan is upside down. If, say, you owe $300,000, you're no longer around, you leave the house to your children because it's always your house. There's no lender on the title. You give it to your children sell it for $200,000. They owe the lender $190,000, 95% of whatever they sell the house for. The difference between the loan of $300,000 and the $190,000 the heirs pay comes from the insurance that's built into the product. And that's the second thing seniors always seem to think. Well, it's more expensive than a conventional mortgage. I surprise them by agreeing with them. It is more expensive than a conventional mortgage because it's fully insured. Has anyone in this room gotten insurance and not paid for it? Because I'd like to jump in on that. It's a fully insured loan. It's a little more expensive. That's the only difference between a conventional mortgage and a home equity reverse mortgage. So,
Does the home equity, the HECM company, the home equity line of credit, home equity conversion mortgage company,
Thank you.
sorry about that.
HECM.
company have any say in regard to how that house is sold when the time comes?
No, it's your house.
Okay, so they're just banking on the fact that if they don't get paid off through the sale of the house, then the insurance policy will cover that.
Right. HUD controls an insurance pool. It's not an insurance company. It's an insurance pool, and they pay the difference if it's upside down. Okay. Your family wants to keep the house. They can do a conventional mortgage. If they're old enough, they could do a reverse mortgage to pay off the reverse mortgage. Reverse mortgage can always be refinanced. So right now we're living in a period where the value of houses have increased so much. I do reverse mortgages, let's say 10 years ago. I probably refinanced it 5 years ago because the house increased in value. If you do one in 5 years ago, I can guarantee you're going to be 5 years older today. That works in your advantage as well. So, I mean, it's probably the best product the federal government's ever been involved in, frankly.
Right. So when you take the HECM out, Do I have to take it all in a lump sum? Is there
No.
a pool of money I can take it from? How does that work?
An option is to take it as a lump sum, but I never recommend that. The lump sum only allows you to take the amount that's available at closing or during the first 12 months. Historically, people have done a reverse mortgage, and they were done by professionals who were less than professional. And they would convince people to do a reverse mortgage, take all the equity out of the home, and invest it in the market. Nothing could be worse than that. The market drops as well as rises, as we're seeing lately. The worst thing you want to do is take all the equity in your home, put it in the market, and lose your equity. So basically, the best way to do it is with a line of credit. And there's a couple of reasons why you should consider the line of credit with a reverse mortgage. Currently, we guarantee the line of credit, the unused portion of the line of credit that we establish, is guaranteed to grow by 6 to 7% a year. There's something in financial planning called the rule of 72. If you can get a 6 to 7% increase each year, your money doubles in 10 years. So let's say at 62, we're able to give you a $100,000 line of credit. If you don't touch it until you're 72, 10 years later, you've got a $200,000 line of credit. If you can wait till you're 82, you've got a $400,000 line of credit. It's a great way to plan for long-term care if you elected not to take long-term care when you should have. But there's just so many ways this product can be utilized if you're dealing with a professional. I've been doing reverse mortgages for 18 years. I've probably done 300-400 of them. Never had anybody call me and say, gee, I wish I hadn't done this. I call everybody on their birthdays. They're actually happy to hear my voice, which is surprising in itself. But no, I love the product. I did one for my brother. I've done them for fraternity brothers. I've done them for personal friends. No one's ever had a problem with it if it's structured properly for the right reasons.
Right. So the HECM can be used for anything I want it to be used for?
It's your money.
It's my money. So I've seen situations, and why don't you share some of the scenarios you've seen, but I've seen situations where husband and wife, one of the two needs additional care, bring care into the home, use it to fund that. Maybe someone has to go to an assisted living community, but the other spouse decides to stay home.
Yeah.
They could use that money to fund that. What are some of the other more common uses that you've seen for HECMs?
Like I said, 300 or 400. There's probably 3 or 4 of them who did it for the very same reason. I mean, a classic case: a senior living in a $300,000 house that's paid off, living from Social Security check to Social Security check. What if a car breaks down? What if the air conditioning goes out? They have no safety net. Provide a line of credit to them. They don't use it unless they need it, but it's there when they need it. All they have to do is fax or call in. I want $1,000. I want $5,000 electronically into their checking account, and they write a check off their checking account. Nothing could be easier. Something that's not as frequent as it should be is purchasing homes with a reverse mortgage. Most people, when they think of reverse mortgage, they think of taking equity out of their home. 10 years ago, HUD came out and said, okay, you can now use a reverse mortgage to purchase a home. In the past, you had 2 choices if you wanted to downsize or right size. You sell the 3-story house where your knees don't like going up and down the steps, create a bucket of money. You want to buy a $200,000 villa, you have 2 choices. You take that entire bucket of money you got from the sale of the previous place and purchase the villa outright, or you take part of it for a down payment and then have a mortgage payment. Well, any financial planner worth of salt will tell you shouldn't bury your liquid capital in a house that's 62 years of age or older. And nobody at 62 wants to have a mortgage payment. So HUD said you can use the reverse mortgage on the new place. At 70, I can lend about 50%. You want to buy a $200,000 villa. I show up with a check for $100,000. The client shows up with a check for $100,000. They purchase a $200,000 villa, live in it, never have to make a mortgage payment. In essence, they're buying a $200,000 villa for $100,000. Okay? I told that story to a retired vice president of HUD here in St. Louis. His reaction was, huh. I always kid him, you must have been at lunch the day your boss announced this, but that's neither here nor there. 4 days after our conversation, he called me back and he said, instead of that $200,000 villa you were talking about, My wife and I just put a contract on a $400,000 house. The older you are, the more I can lend. I showed up at closing with a check for $253,000. He showed up with a check for $125,000. They only offered $375,000. They purchased, moved into, and live in a $400,000 house, having paid $125,000, and will never have a mortgage payment as long as either of them live in the house.
Right, so they need to pay for insurance and for
Property
taxes.
tax, yeah.
Right, but no mortgage, which is
Right.
great.
No principal or interest.
Great. All right, so let's wrap it up. And I still want to ask and get a better feel in my mind the advantage or comparison between getting a home equity line of credit versus a HECM if I'm 62 or older.
Okay. Big advantage is you decide whether you ever make a payment. I don't know anything that could be better for the client.
I have a HECM on my, I have a home equity line of credit on my house that I haven't tapped yet. Okay,
Right.
so it's sitting there waiting for me to tap if I want it.
Sure.
So how do I compare the value of that to a HECM? What's the difference between the two, if at any? Or may I not qualify for the home equity line of credit because of income? Help me understand.
Well, first of
difference.
all, a lot of seniors can't qualify for a home equity line of credit because they don't have the income any longer. My product, income doesn't matter. The house ensures the lender's going to get paid at some point. Second, line of credit's probably good for 5 years, and then the bank's going to reassess it and probably raise the rates, or not do it again because you've reached a certain age. The older you are with my product, the more I can lend you. So we're happy to work with. I think the oldest person that ever did one on was 94 years old. Guy was very interesting. He was an engineer. He had 94 patents, including car seat warmers. The thing he was proudest of, he was America's oldest, I'm having a senior moment myself. The oldest living, what is it called, the little cardboard cars? Pardon me? Soapbox. He was America's oldest soapbox driver. He won in New York back like 80-some years ago, and that's the thing he was proudest of after having 94 passes.
What, the longest living soapbox derby driver?
Yeah, that was it. That was his...
That's his claim to fame?
Hey, it's a claim.
It is a claim. That's great.
No, but you choose whether you ever make a payment. You don't have to worry about 5 years from now it being reevaluated and taken away from you. You know, it has all the advantages over and above a line of credit.
Great. Sounds good. All right, any questions? Okay, anything else we didn't talk about that you want to share? Great. Panelists will stick around for a little bit, so feel free if you want to talk with them. Our next program, April 18th, personalized medicine and medication safety. We're going to have a PharmD here, so a doctor of pharmacy, and WashU occupational therapist is going to come in and talk about that. So we'll have 2 panelists for that, so hopefully you can join us, bring a friend. So thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it, and hopefully see you next time. Bring a friend. Thank you much.